I wasn't planning on recording any of this. My original plan was to put all this together and basically just have you guys be able to listen to the music, read this conversation that I have with this chat bot, and put two and two together, figure out what the music means, and figure out how it plays into what I was showing you. And I picked 5 songs. Each song worked together perfectly with how the conversation was going. I don't even know how I did it. It was pretty amazing. They copyrighted me on 4 of the 5, literally 4 of the 5. So I don't understand why bands do the copyright strikes, because the problem, like, the first thing I did when I heard some of this music was I went out and bought the CD. So, I mean, they're limiting the amount of people that are going to be exposed to their music by doing this. And it's just a stupid, like, it's just stupid. That said, if you don't want to listen to me talk and you want to view this video in its original format, how I intended, you should find a secondary device and play the music in the background and just mute this video. So the first song was Gray Days, B12. And this, like, I got to do some videos on Chester Bennington in the first place because of numerous different reasons. For one thing, he wrote B12 when he was 12, and that just doesn't seem like, I don't understand how he understood what he was talking about when he was 12. I mean, there's a part where it says, where he's trying to figure out what's causing the problem. And he says, anarchism, Satanism, socialism. A man's brain is deranged, so we think he's insane. And then he does a German war cry, because the first part he was talking about things that were happening in Germany. And then he says, what, you think I'm stupid? Like, you think I'm stupid to believe any of this? Like, I know what the problem is. That's really what he was saying. He knew what the problem was. And purple Flintstone vitamins are poison. So I don't know, just throwing that out there. That's the first song. The second song that I picked was A Perfect Circle, Pet. And in it, Maynard is singing from the position of God. He's basically saying, if you still think God is going to save you from the New World Order, then you're not awake yet. The boogeymen are coming. You can figure out who they are by this conversation. But New World Order is not about a one world government, okay? Like, all you had to do was pay attention to how many different places did the same things during a certain event to realize this is global. It's already that way. And most of the things that they want people to be scared of have already happened. It's spiritual. New World Order is spiritual. Operation Blue Beam, that would lead to a second coming of Christ. So blue is a color that represents God. All colors were related to God in tribes. I don't care what anybody says. The reason why they did it is because colors come from the sun. The sun activates the pineal gland through light from your eyes. They weren't stupid. They understood how everything worked. Beam me up, Scotty. It's about God beaming you up. So the second coming of Christ, and this would happen from a fake alien invasion. Well, they called a certain event an alien invasion. And it's kind of like Reagan said, if only we had an alien invasion to unite mankind. In 2012, there was a computer virus, computer worm they sent around. Jesus is wormwood. He is the love bug. And that's what they were talking about in Leave the World Behind. And I'm about 3/4 of the way through the first video I want to make on it. There's going to be several, because there's literally all the videos that I've seen on it are bullshit. They point things in the right direction. Like, they kind of tell you some things to look at, but they just lie about what it means. And this is basically, it's happening on a much bigger scale than what people realize, but I'll talk about that in a little while. So the reason why it's named Pet is because, you know, they're a pet. It's what he named it for. So the third song that I chose was Pussifer's Apocalyptical. I don't really think I need to explain that one. The fourth song was Grey Days Whole. And the Grey Days songs are off the Amends album and the Phoenix album. Whole's about the divine feminine. The fifth song was Tool's The Grudge. And you'll maybe be able to figure out why I chose that song. Alright, that said, here's the video. So, how I got started in this was about 2018, and I was kind of wondering, like, did the pyramids prove aliens existed? So I started looking into the pyramids. That was before I was really, like, understood anything about anything. So, and another thing that got me even asking questions in the first place is cops. Like, the way that cops treat people. Like, it doesn't make sense why it's allowed. So I started researching cops. And that's actually what kind of led me down this huge rabbit hole during a certain event. Let's just say that. Basically, I was watching audits, and then somebody turned me on to some things that Bill Gates said, and some simulations that were run, and that got me asking a lot of questions. I mean, I only believed the official story for like 3 days, and eventually I started trying to make sense of everything. So the way that they have everything set up is if you start to realize the scale that things are happening on, it doesn't seem like it feels like aliens. It doesn't feel like people would do this, because we're not really taught about the nature of human beings in the first place. So we have a very we don't understand ourselves, and we don't understand people. We don't understand how the world works. We just think we do. And this is why immediately I was like, it's got to be aliens. This makes no sense. So they have it set up so the first thing that people who like have this like, oh shit moment now encounter ancient aliens, and they sit there and they put a lot of stuff out there. And it's all misleading. They're misusing all of it to lie about it. But this is what they do with everything. So that's the first place you end up. So you end up with, past technology, and some of which I've seen some things that are true that are pretty crazy, but like the whole flat earth thing is a trap. If you look at the United Nations logo, there's 33 spaces over the North Pole. And I'm not going to explain this fully in this video, because this is another video in itself. The North Pole points at the North Star. The North Star represents Sirius, which represents the pineal gland, the mercy seat of God, God sitting on his throne. So that's why those two Roman branches that they would wear in between their, behind their ears, that would stop on either side of the pineal gland. That's why they would wear them. So, this wasn't just a Roman belief. This was a worldwide belief. This was something that you'll see no matter where you look. They dressed, like the clothes they wore were about it. And this is still going on when you actually start to pay attention to how celebrities are dressing, what's on their clothing. This symbolism, all of it has roots. And, think about the word root. Where do roots come from? The tree of life. But anyways, that's the key to everything, by the way. The tree of life. It really is. It's the key to absolutely everything. They based everything off of it. But yeah, so that's basically showing the world with the all-seeing eye, and there's a reason why it's depicted that way. But again, it's a whole nother video. And this is being passed off as a flat Earth thing. And if you look at some depictions of flat Earth that's shaped like an egg, and they tell you the world is shaped like a sphere, there's a reason for that. The cosmic egg represents the birth of the universe. And then you have the firmament, which again represents the cosmic egg. And then you have the skull, which is the cosmic egg. And all of it means the same thing. And trust me, I've got a video that I can make about that too. Really, there's so much information that I can go over at this point. Like, I basically have like an endless supply. It's ridiculous how much information I've done on this. And when I talk to other people, because of the traps and the way everything's set up, and and then every video that you watch on any of this, they make it look like Satanism. And I could tell how much research somebody's done based off of talking to them. Like, I had one person who brought up, because I made a separate channel at one point to research what black people were viewing. And I mean, not all black people, but people that were into, like, it was during the Kanye psyop, and I knew that he was meeting with ICUC, so I did some research into them, and it's total bullshit. Everything he said was bullshit. It was all misleading on purpose. Like, his handler designed psyops. Like, it's just so obvious. I don't know why anybody believes anything that any single celebrity says at this point. It's all purposefully misleading. It's what they do. So they all do it. So anyway, during that, like, I saw the paintings that they did, like the religious paintings of black people and the religious paintings of white people. And I don't know why people would even think there were only religious paintings of white people in the first place, but that style of artwork was definitely created by the Europeans in the first place. I don't know how people don't realize that, because when you actually, like, you could look at a timeline of the kind of drawings that they were making in Egypt, and there was like a shift around 100 BC, and there was a shift again after BC. But I mean, like, instead, if you really wanted to make an argument, why wouldn't you immediately go to the rock art that they drew in Australia and argue that in favor of black people? Because the first saints that you saw were basically stick figures. I mean, it's the same type of drawing, but it's more elaborate because people had access to more things in order to make this. It was very prestigious. But yeah, anyway, so he wanted to talk about how the popes are basically praying to a black Mary and Jesus. And look, it's pretty weird if you don't understand what's going on. But popes have a thing for, Catholics have a thing for Mary. There's a reason why, by the way. Mary is Lilith. She's Eve, mother of the living. She is the divine feminine. And this is why Jesus tells his disciple, she is your mother too. It's why it made a point to say that she was in the marriage without wine. She was there. Part of marrying God, part of understanding yourself, and part of understanding everything, you got to get to know Mary. Um, but that said, that's and the reason why they're black is because it represents chaos before the light. You know, that's even part of chaos theory, which is the real meaning of ordo ab chao, order out of chaos. That's what it really means. Um, but yeah, and then like I ran into this other guy, and I didn't know this person. He just started talking to me, asking me questions, right? And immediately he's telling me that dinosaurs live with people and giants this and the flood, and these are all things that you encounter on social media. And this was after he even agreed that the internet was created basically as a trap. I mean, not just for that reason, but that's definitely part of it. That's how they used it. It wasn't like some kind of coincidence. Like they had the technology already before they gave it to anybody. They thought about how they could use it. It's just one of the ways that they came up with. I mean, they were already doing it to begin with the media, which, by the way, this thing says that they don't use symbolism in the media. That's not true at all. Prison Break is a perfect example, and I've got pictures from the first season that I plan on making a video for. I tried to keep going, but the gestures became like to the point where I was having to pause it every 5 seconds and I couldn't watch it, and it was like one episode would take me hours to get through because there was too much. So eventually I stopped taking pictures of it. But the prison is the human body. Fox River is the cerebral spinal fluid. And this shows up in hieroglyphs. They knew about it. There was medicine based off of it. The Tesla logo's about it. There's a lot of interesting things when it comes to cerebral spinal fluid. It's where like it holds diseases, like it's like salt water. You're formed in your mother's stomach. It coats your entire body before it separates and you make your own. I mean, yogis have this thing where they take their tongues and they try to basically put it behind their uvula, whatever it's called, and they put it as far up behind the nasal passage as they can to basically get high off their cerebral spinal fluid. They lick it, they taste it. That I don't know how that's even humanly possible, but apparently it's this thing that they do. Santa Claustrum, I'll put it that way. But so the Secret Service agent that was chasing them, he had 322 contacts in his phone book. They had Teabag wear a 33 hat and cover one eye with it. I mean, there's so many things in that show. The company is basically about all of this. They just didn't tie in the royal connection. And another thing, the media company Fox, they use two V's on either side of their logo. What does the Fox say? Fox Mulder, Dana Scully. There is so much on foxes. The nine-tailed fox in Naruto, Mozilla Fox, Star Fox McCloud. I mean, there's a reason why they're doing this. And in the song, What Does the Fox Say? There's a reason why he says ancient mystery. I just happened to solve the mystery. And in Prison Break, they hide a sticky note behind Michael. You can't even see it. It's in subliminals. You have no idea how many times I tried to pause this thing to figure out what was written behind him. But it said the fox is fast. He is the fox. He's Archangel Michael. And if you look at his tattoos tell you a story. And the story is written in stone carvings. It's in hieroglyphs. And like I said, there's a Linkin Park album cover with one of them. The End Result on it. Hybrid Theory. That name doesn't just mean what they said it did. But anyways, I've got a ton of information on all that. And the warden, in the shows, the Pope. They even had the guy running the company look like Klaus Schwab. I don't think any of that's a coincidence. But yeah, like it's kind of crazy to me that like the conversations that I have with people, it's like they don't understand that the things that people are saying, the things that they're showing us, like that's all things that they want us to see. And some Freemasons have written about some of the stuff I'm talking about here in their books. They change names, they change the way they explain it. And I've never read their books, by the way. I just studied the symbolism because I realized, I realized the full extent that this was happening immediately. And I was like, okay, so if I read their books, they're just going to lie about it anyway. So how do you get the information you're looking for? I mean, if you got to go through them for everything, then how do you learn anything that you're looking for? Well, the only answer to that was the symbolism. I mean, this had to have, when you actually study it long enough, you realize it predated written word, and there's so much proof of that. But the symbolism itself is a language. It was technically the first language. Pictographs came from it. Hieroglyphs came from it. Written word came from it. And each letter had a symbolic meaning, down to every single one. I mean, these were not... I mean, that's why languages have been rewritten. That's why they've, changed over time so much. And that's why they just started changing words instead of making new languages, changing the meanings. And they do it with everything. They just rename things, change the meanings, play around. Then nobody can actually remember what things were supposed to be in the beginning. And there's some examples of that we saw during a certain event. But it's crazy to me that people will automatically resort to the things that they're seeing on social media, and they start blurting those out. But when you look, so I've seen this a lot too. You'll have like a Satanist or an occultist who's now an ex-Satanist or an ex-occultist, and they went to Jesus, and I've seen this a lot. And one thing, there's this one person on Twitter, no, Tumblr. It was Tumblr. I don't use it. My girlfriend does, but she was an ex-occultist. She filmed her baptism, and then there's a video of her crying over Jesus. And I'm watching the video, and I'm like, this is like watching Amber Heard's trial, man. She's fake crying. And she's using all kinds of symbolism. She's into music and stuff, and there's a lot of gestures going on that contradict the things that she's saying, too. It's not just that, it was just obvious. And I see it all the time. And people will make videos about the music, the movies, whatever. And they'll show you things that are real, and then they'll just lie about it. They'll make it look like something it isn't. And this is how they hit everything. They show you, and they just lie about it. This has been going on for a long time. Misdirection, misrepresentation. That's all they got to do. And people, the way that people work, people kind of form it's if you're shown 100 different things, you're going to try to choose the best reasonable answer that makes sense to sum up those 100 things, right? Well, not everything is being shown that you need to see in order to understand everything. I mean, certain phrases, certain words hold more meaning than what you think. And a lot of this stuff, I mean, you got to understand that, I have a scientific paper that I found online somewhere, and it talked about how the symbolism evolved with mankind. But the thing is, It didn't. It stayed the same. It hasn't changed. I mean, they might attribute it to certain things or misrepresent it, but when you actually like understand it, this was built into everything. I mean, this is why we have pyramids, because of what the pyramids meant. The reason why it's shaped like that, it isn't a coincidence. It's not just because they thought it looked cool or like they wrote this in the stars because they were able to revert, like they realized life didn't start here. Like we had to have come from somewhere. And they're looking up at the sky and they're like, this, and this had to happen for us to get here. And that must mean that the same is true for all these lights that we see. You know, they knew that they were stars. So eventually they're like, if I rewind everything back far enough, there had to have been a first star. They just related it, just like you would a mother and a father carrying down genetic information to a child. It's the same thing. And scientifically, when stars die, that's where life came from. It's like blowing spores off a flower. The only ingredient that did not come from a dead star is hydrogen. And there's, like, I talked to a physicist about this. I went to go do some work on one of his properties. I said, so everything in the light was here in the darkness? And he said, no, everything came from nothing. And I'm looking at he's like, we don't understand it. That's what he said to me. He said, nobody understands it. And I realized that's why the story begins with Adam, because everything came from nothing. It was God sitting alone in darkness before that. And this is why in quantum physics, like they're not really sure fully how to explain it, but yeah, like it's just so fascinating and so interesting to me. But you have Adam, and then he that knew no sin became sin. And I don't know why people don't understand that sin came from life. It's a byproduct of life. If you get rid of people, if you get rid of life, there's no more sin. He that knew no sin became sin. It literally is saying God became sin. And people don't get that. Like that's what Eve was. That's why she's mother of the living. Anyway, I hope you all have a good rest of your day. And when I do finish my Leave the World Behind video, by the way, it isn't going to be like this. I'm actually going to use clips and things in the movie from other movies, because I don't think people understand fully, like, there's nothing original in Hollywood. There's no original concept. It all comes from this. And if you understand this, you're going to see it everywhere. And if you really want to understand something that you're watching in one movie and you can't figure it out, you're really confused by it, there's another movie that used it already. All you got to do is look. Ask the right questions, and the answers will come. And the only reason I understand any of this is because so many things had to align in my life in order for it to make sense. It was unavoidable. Like, I don't even know how. It's like every single time I'm researching something, when I get done researching it, or if I'm like, in the beginning, I'd be researching a symbol. I don't have to research symbols anymore. I spent hours looking at logos and everything, trying to understand. But I mean, I didn't sleep for days. I literally withdrew from work. I spent like 2 years where I just wouldn't sleep and all I did was study. That's it. I mean, I took a step back because I realized that the way things were going, it's like, okay, if I'm constantly trying to make money, then I don't have time to figure out what the hell's going on. If I don't have time to figure out what the hell's going on, and these people are telling me all this crazy shit is true and I know it's not true, well, then I'm going to be in a real bad place. So I wanted to figure out what's going on. So eventually I kind of sorted my way through all their They're made up stories and narratives, and eventually I realized that there was a key to it all. And it's like the exit and Page Master, man. It really is. I thought it was like seals in anime that were like sealing in demons. It's not. It's the total opposite. If you want to understand everything, you got to break the code. I'm telling you, like the way you view everything will change dramatically because you'll actually understand things that other people just think they do. And there's also part of this, by the way. I did not mean to come off like Donnie Darko. Like, I didn't realize that was in Donnie Darko. My girlfriend just happened to put it on the other night, and there was a part where they had they had this preacher guy, and he looks at, Donnie walks up to the microphone. He says, "I think you're the Antichrist," and I was like, "Oh my God, I'm Donnie Darko." And then when he was talking to his teacher, the thing he said about not if you're in God's channel. You know how I know we're in God's channel? Because it kept being shown to me over and over and over again. So right after I would get done researching the symbol or logo or whatever it was, it would show up in the TV show, movie, or game I was playing. And then the way that it would happen, some of these things I've only seen like that one time, like 666 being hidden in paintings with Jesus, right? It was in the Greek letters were hidden. And I come across that and I was like, what the hell? I didn't understand anything, right? I was watching Elvin Lied, which, by the way, I can't even, if I were to make that, I wouldn't even be able to put it on YouTube. I couldn't because of what it's actually about. And I'm not even going to go into that here. But like there was part of that where like just right afterwards, they hit it on a building, the Greek letters for 666. And the girl gets put on this cross in the air. And like, I was just like literally mouth open, like, you got to be kidding me. But this has happened to me so many times. Like, I never pay attention to my tablet, right? But I go to start my tablet and I notice Samsung appear and like disappear. And I'm like, who's Sam? What did he sing? And right after I see this, I'm going back to rewatch Angel. And it's in season 2. And the first thing that you see is this guy, Lorne. And all these demons are singing to him. And I'm just like, wait, hold on. Samsung. So I look further into Sam, right? Son of Sam, serial killer. He thought his neighbor was like a dog. There's a reason why it was a dog, but he was just lying to people. But Samuel represents a dark angel, pretty much like Satan. So Satan sang to God. They played the harp to God, and that also played into some other thing. The point is, it's literally like I read about Judas, and I told my girlfriend, just because I read about this, it's going to show up in Angel, the very next episode, 30 pieces of silver. And I was just like, this is crazy, man. I don't even know how to describe it. It's like endless synchronicity. It's just like I came up with a password for something at work, and within 20 minutes it was on the license plate in front of me, in the car in front of me, and I was just like laughing, like, this is really crazy. I can't even tell you how many times it's happened. And I'll read something, I'll interpret a certain way, and then it'll just show up in a music video or a TV show the exact way. I'm like, it's just like confirming what I already know is true. It's like you got it right. But in the beginning, I didn't understand enough to be able to infer anything. It was just constantly being shown to me. I asked, I guess it was, I don't know how to explain it. And that's another reason why I don't think free will is a thing. I just don't believe in it. God is in control. All right.